An eclipse is often seen as a symbol of transformation, change, and the temporary obscuring of light. It represents a period where what is usually visible is momentarily hidden, leading to a sense of mystery, uncertainty, and anticipation for what might be revealed. In many cultures and spiritual traditions, eclipses are considered powerful moments for introspection, release, and setting intentions for new beginnings. Welcome to Luna and the Druid and the Solar Eclipse. What's happening, Luna?
Our producer wants some attention too, because we didn't mention her. Hello,
Oh, oh, Karma. You're here
karma.
today.
That's our karma to go through such a powerful shift as eclipse in Aries. It's a very rare event in terms of transformations and shift it brings.
Yes. And yeah, especially for today, we prepared ourselves. Oh, hello, Karma. So good to have you in the show, my dear.
Yes, hopefully she'll be a good girl because
Yeah,
she's
she'll be
not.
good.
And I
Yeah.
blame it on an eclipse, which magnifies all of the energy.
It does. It does. Yeah,
Yet,
and the eclipse. Also,
sorry,
who
go
was
ahead.
talking? Who was talking?
I was just saying that not to mention that it's the new moon energy as well. So it's a pretty intense event. And
Yeah,
go ahead, Jan.
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
give you the voice now.
Ah, thank you so much. Yeah, a pretty event, and you could say even a bit of a dark event when we have the new moon. The new moon. It's dark. It's invisible, and well, when we have an eclipse, the dark side of the moon is lit. Did you think of that? Because the moon is between the Earth and the Sun, and yeah, and when we have an eclipse, we often connect it to a mystery that we call the dark night of the soul, where
Mm.
whether it be day or night, new moon or full moon, we feel we're left in darkness. We experience the dark night of the soul. We are going through a deep process of transformation, a process of pain, hurt, a process of uncertainty, and yeah, not before we hit rock bottom. There is a way up, and so it's a big transformative process.
Absolutely. When we had a briefing before tonight and we were discussing what types of topics we want to bring today, Jan said that Dark Night of the Soul is like having an eclipse of light that you can't see the sun. And I really love that analogy because this is exactly what it is. Energy of today's will have a massive impact on our nearest future and how the rest of the year will follow. Yes, baby. Hello, Karma. So,
Yeah, and yeah, and what we said is that there's although we still have to go into the dark part of the discussion, that the dark night of the soul is often followed by a golden dawn.
and that's exactly the
Exactly
point.
the book that's
Exactly.
always in the corner of my screen.
Yeah.
The seventh edition of the Golden Dawn, where yeah, where we do the ceremonial magic, and where all spiritual practices and tarot and everything is integrated into one powerful spiritual path.
Mm, yeah.
But the
Well,
dark night of the soul. Where do we start, Luna?
let's start from the energy of eclipse, maybe, and explain why it is such a big opportunity to change and transform and shift our life. We like it or not, this is what's happening right now with this time we live right now with the astrology and the effect the planets have on us. from my own experience, I noticed that many times there are very many people who will scare others and lead in fear with the energy of the eclipse, that it's all dark and the things will change and it's going to be tough. To the certain degree, yes, if you don't know how to take an advantage of energies, and if you don't understand what's going on and what is the reason actually happening behind those changes, and
Yeah.
that's always to align with a new purpose. It's the way I could explain it is, imagine that we all go through seasons, like the mother nature goes, and the right what it is right now in terms of the new moon and the darkness it brings is like planting a seed, and the growth happens in the dark. The soil is dark. So right now, we with this eclipse, we are being planted to emerge and bring fruits, and it's up to us, of course, what we're going to do with that energy. Will we resist or take an advantage of this powerful and sudden shift, which will spark the newest version of ourselves? And the question is, do we want to stay in the comfort zone and don't grow, or maybe take an opportunity, even if that's a challenge we will face? Because changes are inevitable. In this time of the year, we enter this Aries season, the fiery energy of movement. So it's going to be interesting for the next couple of weeks, months, because we will be able to see the fruits of the work we've been putting on until now.
That's it. That's so true. That's so true. And if we look at when we go through the dark night of the soul, there's obviously there's phases you go through, and I've done some research there, uh, and it would normally start with one or a number of triggering events or disruptions in your life. So there's things happening caused by yourself, caused by others, or caused by a combination of yourself and others that trigger like a wave of negativity, a wave of feeling out of place, feeling out of control of your own life, feeling you have no control, and feeling of sliding into a darker period of your life, sliding into, yeah, the dark night of the soul, as we call it.
Especially when we use energy of eclipse to help ourselves to reach deeper, because energy of the eclipse highlights everything, highlights all the aspects. And what's happening right now is this energy of the eclipse and new moon will highlight the aspects which require change in our lives. And very often those events will lead to the dark night of the soul, because we have to die. A part of our, the old part of us needs to die in order for the new to be born and be emerged, sometimes out of ashes. Sometimes everything what's old have to just be destroyed, and we have to walk away from it. But it's not an easy process, and very often the dark night of the soul is what's causing the changes, or is an effect of changes. It's obviously
Yeah,
an individual thing.
yeah,
However, I see both the energy of eclipse as well as the dark night of the soul as a process of changing and growing into something new, better, more beautiful. And even though right now it may look and seem that it's dark and it's heavy and it's difficult and you don't want to deal with it, for example, um, the end result may be something you even have never thought of, because it'll be better than anything you expected and anything you dared to dream. So I see the transformative aspects of it. So it can be empowering if you know that there is something better waiting for you as a result of the harshness and hard times you may enter right now.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and when you enter these hard times, it often feels like a roller coaster, and
Mm,
that represents stage two of the dark night, where we go into the loss of direction and loss of hope. We're in this magic magic slide down down the rabbit hole, and it seems like every day gets worse and worse and worse, and we start believing that this is our fate, and this is what's our life is going to look like. Like, I can even remember my my the time I was sliding down. I even believed that I would never get out of it again.
mm, yes,
I
I've
had
been there too.
a very disruptive time, when a lot of things, work, business, relationship, family, and everything seemed to fall apart all at the same time. uh, and things were, some of these aspects were so severe that for instance, I thought I'd be in debt, and I'd be in trouble, and people hunting me for the rest of my life.
Mm,
Yeah, which in hindsight wasn't true, but I couldn't see it at the moment that I was sliding down, that I lost my direction, and I really lost hope, and yeah, went down and down and down. You have experiences like that?
oh my goodness, I don't know where to even start.
Do we have enough time in the hour?
But the best example would be after losing my soulmate and my life's companion Zosa, my doggy, which portrait you can see behind me. That sparked and started a huge transformation in my life, and which led through the most darkest dark night of the soul ever I've experienced ever. Because it forced me to face myself in ways I wouldn't ever even think of and come across. Uh, Not mention the emotions I got to experience through that. However, something so painful and something which was such a difficult time in my life resulted in the biggest blessing, which is lying on my lap now. And her name is Karma. If I wouldn't go through all the processes I've been through in that period of life between there and now, many things wouldn't happen. I definitely wouldn't be sitting here talking to you and sharing my experience, knowledge, passion with you here. Um, so for me, it's always exciting to a certain degree if I know that there is a challenge ahead, because I know that there is something new which will emerge from that, a blessing or a lesson, a blessing in disguise, as I say it.
Yeah,
Uh, and this process is so needed in order for us to grow, in order for our soul to be able to find a different perspective, because that's all what it is. Learning from the hanged man, a different perspective. Right now, we can have a shift in the way we look at things. And obviously, the dark night of the soul is such a challenging time. It's like having a depression, but on a soul level. That it, as Jan said, it may cause us to be lost, not knowing the direction, but there is a reason in that, and that reason and the power which is forced on us is the power of surrender and letting go and trusting the flow, trusting the universe,
yeah,
trusting our path, trusting our own soul, because we before we come to earth, we choose what experiences we want to have as a soul. So knowing that there is a light at the end of a tunnel, even though we can't see it, and very often
yeah,
it's the light we need to discover in ourselves to guide our path and to shine upon our next step and the next step. And in that surrender, in that moment of peace, like in the middle of a storm, it's always the most quiet. allow the higher guidance and the soul, the body, the intuition talk and give us perspective, different perspective, and then solution. But obviously, it's easier to say than done.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So, so what you're actually supposing is when you have the feeling of losing direction, of losing hope, losing faith in the outcome, the best thing is to let go, and then the inevitable happens. When you let go, you come at the end, because it's not an endless void you end in, and
Mm,
most of the times, and that's where the big the big shift happens, is when we reach rock bottom.
yeah.
That's the point. You let go, or even with resistance, you're still pulled down and down and down, but there comes a point where it doesn't get any worse.
Hmm. Yes, that's a
And
good point.
yeah, and rock bottom is as solid as rock bottom is. It doesn't go any deeper. It can't get any worse. And that's the moment in your life when you say, okay, now I'm here. Now I'm ready. I've surrendered to the situation. I've faced my demons. Now it's time to go up again.
And then when you hit that rock bottom, you have something to actually spring yourself up from. It's like when you're doing the jump, when you use the ground to help yourself, you can go higher.
Yeah,
And I think that's the purpose of hitting the bottom. It's there.
yeah,
There is no other way than just up from there, and you can use that and build leverage out of that rock bottom in order to go up higher, quicker, faster.
that's it. Well, I occasionally use the phrase, you happen to find rock bottom and then happen to find that it's actually a trampoline.
Exactly, exactly. That's what it is.
It
If
is.
you know how to use that, if you're open enough for change,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And yeah, after the darkest hour, uh, you can stop and look up again and see that there is a light, and you wake up to the truth. You wake up to the truth that the worst is over, probably that you have experienced it all, and that there might be a light at the end of the tunnel, and that is time to stand up and fight again, and or or go with the flow, with the upward flow again, because it doesn't necessarily mean fighting. That's why I call it a trampoline. Sometimes the moment you wake up is already so huge that you're already halfway up, the moment of awakening, that the return path, and especially when you went down fast, the return path is oftentimes just as fast as the way down.
Mm. Yeah.
So yeah.
And during those times, it's very often when we actually discover new tools, because when we start to being uncomfortable, we really don't like, as humans, we don't like that uncomfortableness. Our brain is designed to just keep us in the comfort, and that's what we prefer, the effortless, the whatever uses the least energy. That's what our body, our mind, our brain will like us to know. It's designed to drive us like this. And during those challenging times, very often we tend to look for solutions, something which would ease, which would bring and ease that pain. And very often it's the time when we start doing things we normally wouldn't. We try meditations, journaling, we try energy work in order to stop that feeling and change that feeling of uncomfortableness. And
Yeah.
again, that's the time when we grow most, because we discover ourselves even more, go deeper, and look within ourselves even more and deeper, which obviously are great techniques, because the dark nights of the soul is a spiritual process. The
Yeah.
approach it requires is spiritual as well. It has to honor that aspect. So you have to connect with your inside. And often the dark night of the soul happens in order for us to tap into the soul in the first place.
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah, because in the phase you are referring to is called the fifth phase of the dark night of the soul. So when after rock bottom you wake up to the truth, and that's where you start what's called the phase of spiritual study, spiritual awakening, looking for ways to find meaning, to find purpose there, and to make sure that the next the next uh, dip in your life doesn't go as deep again, or maybe even stays away altogether. And that's where where the saying comes from: religious people believe in hell. Spiritual people have been there.
Exactly what it is. Would you
That's
like to talk a bit more about the stages of Dark Night of the Soul? Because you mentioned the stages.
Yeah, so the stages are there. There are actually six stages. We have already talked about five. So the first stage is the trigger, so the triggering event, the major disruption in your life. Then the second stage is losing direction and hope. So you get carried in to the disruptive times. You believe it's true. You change your beliefs. You lose hope. You lose direction, and you're diving into the dark night, or in the pit. Hey, you're in the pitfall, and the third phase is then hitting rock bottom. Boom.
Mhm.
At rock bottom, we wake up. The slam, the slam of hitting rock bottom is a moment of awakening. So okay, it's over. I think it's over. The storm has died down, or I'm in the middle of the storm. It's quiet now. I can move up again, and I can move up again, and that's when you get back in life. Sometimes even already in the process of moving up, we start we start studying spirituality, work on ourselves, work on this path of growth, and that's where many of us are for longer times. I've been studying spirituality for 20 years. It started indeed in a period of downfall, or in a period just after the downfall. And yeah, and what comes after? So in five and six, so spiritual study and part six, they blend in together. There's not a very strict transformation, because part six is authentic living. And I like the term authentic living, living your purpose. Uh, Dark night of the soul often comes either as a disrupt as a part of the start, but also as a thing after the dark night of the soul. That big changes happen. People uh, they take they resign from their 9 to 5 jobs that are just treadmills of endlessness. Uh, Many times there's a change in relationship, family life. Uh, I see many people that go to the dark night on their own and come back and find a partner they don't know anymore, or or the partner doesn't know the awakened soul anymore, and they move different directions. So finding after the dark night of the soul, it often is that we find a new direction. We find authentic living. We find living our purpose, living with our heart instead of with our mind only, or in a heart mind congruent situation where the mind follows the heart, because that's easier for the mind to follow the heart than for the heart to follow all these crazy ideas that tap up in the ego, in our mind. And yeah, so the hopeful message of the dark night of the soul is that it changes your life in a profound way that's so profound, yeah, that you're kind of happier than ever before. That's at least what my experience is. Going through the dip and ending up on an everlasting high.
we have to remember that life is not a linear thing, and we're not supposed to stay in the same level or in the same place like we wish and we would forever. No, life is like climbing mountains. You go up, you go down, sometimes you will fall, and at the end of that there is a beautiful top mountain top with the view like you've never seen before. And it's important to understand and allow this natural process to happen, because there is a higher guidance, there is a energy which knows best what's good for us and what's in plan and what's the road ahead, because very often we can see only the short period, the nearest future, and we don't know what's behind the bend, the curve, what's behind that experience. And I'll tell you a secret. We want change. Very often people tend to stay in the comfort zone because it's kind of okay, it's good, they feel secure, and that's where they prefer to be, because they fear that there might be something better. They fear the process of change, because many people don't thrive on change because it's scary. We always fear what's unknown. If we would know what's there, we wouldn't be scared of it. And that very often comes across when reading cards for people. When you tap into that energy of future, very often there is a feeling of relief, because it's not unknown anymore. It's something I know what to prepare for. It's something I know now what to act. And that's why tarot readings are so handy and helpful, to give you a little bit of different perspective, so it wouldn't be as unknown as it was before. But where
Yeah.
I'm going with this, um,
Well, I can add to it if you like, and give you
you,
some
of
some
course.
breathing space. One of the persons who wrote a lovely book about the tarot is Jodorowsky. He's the famous movie maker of the Holy Mountain, the South American. He wrote the spiritual something spiritual about the tarot cards, and I've watched him read the cards occasionally, and he says even when we put out a card for the future, it's oftentimes it's like a magical spell. When you manifest something through the cards, it doesn't necessarily it needs to happen or it must happen, but you're putting something out there. It's like the all-time adagio, thoughts become things. What you say, what you think, what you bring out into the world is bound to become manifest, because that's the power of our mind, power of our inner magic, or our inner magician, that brings change and brings new perspectives into reality.
Yes, and that's the magic of tarot. If you hear something you don't like, you can change that in order to change that outcome. And the opposite, if you hear something you like, do everything, take appropriate action in order to make this happen, because things don't happen by itself. It happens only when we stay in a comfort zone, and it's about time to move out of that things will come into place which we wouldn't necessarily want to have them. But the secret is that if there is a will or want, it may not be enough to make a change, a long lasting change. The only way to make things happen is when we take this possibility, this oh I want, into a must. If there is a
Mhm.
must, there is a way. And if there is a must, there is that's the way of actually getting the strength in order to take that step and take that action and take and make that change actively, not for us, but being in charge of that, in charge of that process, and holding the steering wheel and taking our life into the direction we want to, learning from experience, learning from the darkness, learning from the past, and also learning from other people, and mm, listening their stories
Yeah,
and their guidance, simple as it is.
yeah, yeah. And then, yeah, to wrap things up. uh, we started like we that it was actually a coincidence that we would talk about the dark night of the soul while the eclipse was on, because the series we are doing, uh, we planned our monthly uh, our monthly topics weeks and weeks ahead. So this topic was more or less already put in place 3 months ago. And we're now here today on the day of the eclipse. And if you wrap the whole story up and connect it with the eclipse, we can just say, just like the eclipse is something that comes and goes again, like ebb and flow and things, the dark night of the soul falls upon us. We surrender, go through the process, and inevitably it goes away.
And that's a great point, because nothing lasts forever. The good times or the bad times, the challenges or the moments of joy when you cry out laughing, nothing
Yeah,
lasts forever.
yeah. This
Uh,
felt my
and I'm glad that you pointed out that we can predict the eclipse, solar, lunar. We can't predict astrology, but we cannot predict when it's going to happen to us. And it can come out of nowhere. It can come all of a sudden, and that's happening. The big lives events will happen, and then we have to find ourselves somehow around it in the new reality. And I believe that tapping into our own spirituality is the way to get through it.
Yep, that's so true. Well, as tarot readers, Luna, um, I
I
found
think
today
I like
a lovely tarot spread for the eclipse, and
mm,
it contains 3 cards. And let's just share the concept with our viewers. So the cards we are pulling today are 3 cards. The first one will provide insight into unfinished business.
mm,
The second card in the middle provides a view of a shadow part that wants to be recognized. And the third card provides insight into your new self, which will be given space in the 3 months after the eclipse. So the cards I've pulled will give insights in these 3 aspects. Our viewers can choose if they want the message from one of the cards, card 1, 2, or 3, and I also will give uh, a holistic answer to what the cards in a combination would mean for you if you let them have if you have them. So yeah, just let's move over to the cards. They're on the table. My new deck of alchemy. So it's a deck of change and of manifestation. So the first card. Wait, I see that my camera is mirrored, because the first card should be on this side. Now it is. The first card, and that's the card that provides insight into unfinished business. And we pulled the Four of Swords, and that's a nice one because the Four of Swords is the card of a pause, of a break, of uh, a truce, as we call it in the Tarot. So it's not the end of the war, but it's a period between the fights. And when it provides insight into unfinished business, it says, don't worry too much about unfinished businesses. The time is not right to finish the business. So take it easy, contemplate, be relaxed, lay down, do something else, do something you like, take a break. Uh, Unfinished business is unfinished business. And what I know from my own experience, that many times when I leave items on my task list, uh, rest for a while, they solve themselves. So unfinished business take a break from them. You are not responsible of finishing them right now. If you pick the second card to provide a view of a shadow part of yourself that wants to be recognized, you've pulled the Six of Discs. Uh, a card of generosity, as you can see. The one child gives something to the other and the other gladly accepts, so it's generous giving. The general aspect of the card is success, material success. Things are working out in your life. So what the shadow part? When the little boy on this side gives but doesn't give um, unconditionally. That was the word I was looking for. The gift should be unconditional, and if you don't give unconditional, then there is a shadow part there in yourself. You look like you're not holding on to the material side, uh, but secretly you do. And look at the boy; he's still standing on 5 other coins, so he's holding most of it to himself and doesn't give completely unconditionally, or doesn't even share with probably his twin brother. And like the twin brother, he could have a secret stash on the back there as well, and accept the generous gift of his brother. And that's the shadow part of accepting more from someone who has less to give. So generosity is fine, but it should always be unconditional. And as soon as it is as something like this is conditional, it's not giving. It's probably even just hoping for better karma or something. So hoping for a result, while you should give generously and unconditionally. The third card. Did you see it, Luna? The Tower.
Mm.
Oh. Provides insight into your new self, which will be given space in the 3 months after the eclipse. Actually, the card that would represent the dark night of the soul, of course, is the death card number 13. We have here card number 16, uh, the Tower. Of course, a similar process, a process of things falling down, things crumbling, and from the destruction that comes with the disruptive events of the dark night of the soul. Comes in the end comes redemption and authentic living. So the message of this card is, when you get the Tower card and you know that there is a process coming or ongoing, always remember, look at in the timeline, look back at the other card of the Tower card, because looking in retrospect, it, as far as my experience goes, after a Tower moment, there is always and ever a big new thing coming up, and the big new thing is always a good thing coming up. So when you drew the third card, yeah, give it some time, give it these 3 months to live through it. So when you integrate these into a journey, um, so you begin with a period of rest and reflection, move through a phase of understanding and balancing shadow aspects in your material life, and culminating in a powerful rebirth. So the story in as a whole mirrors the transformative potential of the eclipses and the transformative potential of the dark night of the soul, where you go with the flow, uh, face your demons, and come out as a stronger one in the end.
Thank you very much for that wonderful reading.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
very powerful. And the reason why Jan said, "Hi Luna, guess what's the number 3 card?" and it was the Tower card, is because before we went live, we were having a discussion, and I used the dark night soul of the soul and the tower card as a related, even
It
though,
is
as Jan
different.
said, the death card is the most dark night of the soul card. However, the aspect between that and the correlation and connection between the two of them is very strong. And what's actually really funny is that's not the first time where we pull a card or talk about the card and it appears during the reading.
Boom.
So now it shows me how we are in tune with what's about to come and how we can feel cards that they show up even in the conversation, even though before we even pull the card. So that's an amazing thing from the behind the scenes of Luna and the Druid, how it works. And
And behind the scenes of the tarot reader, because I've had a busy weekend of 2 days of readings, and it was sometimes just completely uncanny which cards came on the table, and sometimes I had a question: why the cards are in the wrong sequence, and then I do the right sequence so that this no, I don't change the card. I leave the cards on the table, but then process the story, and it seemed what seemed like something wrong in the story that I was channeling. It came exactly right,
mm,
and that's so often. Even sometimes you see the cards on the table and you think, "What the fuck is happening?" And then just RTFC. You know what I mean?
no,
Read the
RDSC or
fucking cards.
whatever. Yeah,
So,
well,
but even when you look at the whole picture, you think it doesn't work. Well, then just start at chapter one and read the cards from 1 to 10. Read the fucking cards.
sorry, RDFC cracked me up. Yeah, well, that's the thing. We often just have to trust, and in within the tarot reading or card reading in general, we have to trust what's coming out, that it has actually a purpose. Because many often, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't understand, but the person who's in front of me knows exactly
Oh,
what I'm talking about, what situation comes through, and they make sense out of it. So I always say that I don't have to know what I'm talking about as long as it makes sense to you, to the client. That's all what matters. And just like Jan said, at the end of the day, it always somehow, one way or another, comes into a story which brings some light onto the darkness
yeah.
the cards we're asking for, because it's usually the aspect and element of the darkness involved in every card reading. And while was Jan pulling his cards, I pulled mine. Obviously, I'm
Okay.
pretty restricted today because our producer decided to join us today, which I'm very happy about because she keeps me warm and she protects me through the craziness of the eclipse energy, which, by the way, is happening now. It's already started just before we went
We're in the
live.
middle of it. Yeah.
Yes, in America, it's actually a full one, so it's a very rare occasion. However, it's best not to look at it directly because it's an intense portal. You need to remember that with every element of darkness, the dark entities will take an advantage. So I don't recommend manifesting today, even though it's a new moon. And what I like to do is to wait until the energy of the eclipse passes down a little bit, and then with the first sight of light of the crescent moon, then it's a good period to manifest around the eclipse. It's just to be on a safer note.
Yeah.
That's my own practice. You can follow it or not. That's what I do. That's what I feel.
Yeah. Well, looking at the eclipse, like we had, I looked for an image representing the current eclipse in Ireland. So that was the starter screen, and so we
Mm,
see uh, more or less that the moon doesn't cover the sun completely, and the sun more or less shows the thing they're calling this is calling the diamond ring. So there's a ring and there's a big diamond on the side uh, of where the sun doesn't get completely covered by the eclipse.
beautiful.
Lovely
I love
idea. Yeah, yeah,
diamond ring. I really love the idea. So true.
yeah.
So in the meantime, I pulled some cards and the
Well,
same
let's have
principle.
them.
Yes.
I'll give you some more some more screen.
Oh, thank you. So the the first topic was the provides insight into unfinished business. So I have guidance here. Unfortunately, I can't move too much because there is a producer sleeping on my hand, so I'll do my best. So I pulled two cards. So you can either pick whatever you feel more drawn. However, I will read it as a full message. And the cards, just let me do this. This one here, I'm moving this one on the oh, I'm so bad with directions. Anyway, this card here, the first one, says step into your power. So it is important to step into your own power, find your own light. And it's actually an Aries here in the corner over there, which represents that movement forward, that energy of the Aries, which is very direct. When the Aries makes a decision, there is no time between decision and action. They just go for it. If you ever seen a ram, which was, for example, scared or in dangerous, they just go forward. Then they don't think about anything. They just move forward. That's it. But the second card is to be humble. So it's important that that power won't come from a place of ego and won't come from a place of using other people, but rather being humble and turning within, using and connecting with our own guidance in our own body. And instead of focusing on the outsourcing and talking about stuff, just focusing on the work and doing it without the without the aspect of what is that I'm feeling with this being humble. I'm struggling to describe it, but what the message is that it's important to just focus and not share with too many people outside, because those people may bring their own opinions which can affect our own path, because their opinion, their limiting beliefs can be implemented on ourselves, and it can change the path we should take right now. So step into your power, but be humble at the same time. The second part of the message, I have here only one card. Bear with me. This is the view of a shadow part that wants to be recognized, and we had Six of Pentacles as that card, which is that success. And in order to get there, it's important to cool our emotions. And again, we have Aries season again, the Aries energy. This time here is the full moon, so it's the time when things come to fruition. But in order to get that success, it's important to keep our emotions under control and not let them take the best out of us. Rather than, or actually the way to do it is to turn and use those emotions and turn it into the power, the force which will move us forward, the force which will give us that drive. And the third card, or actually the third question we had, was the insight of the new self, which will give space in the next 3 months. And the guidance on that, oh my goodness, it's amazing. To set a bigger picture, and we have the energy of Sagittarius, another fire energy of the aiming for a goal and then shooting the arrow and just focusing on the goal without the other distractions. And just not surprised to see that new moon in Aries, and go for it. So the next 3 months will be all about action. It will be all about making things happen and taking the lessons from the card Jan pulled and turning it into a new direction, new chapter.
Yeah. So combined, we could say where we are now. If we focus on moving forward, not stressing too much the things that don't need to be done, not stressing too much on the darkness of just gathering material gain, but focus on the growth path, focus on what will be, what will be there in 3 months, and we look back and we see, okay, it wasn't that bad, it was a process.
It was a tower moment, so it's also important not to get stuck into that comfortness of, oh my goodness, my life is terrible, everything's falling apart, my relationships are bad, and it's very easy to stay there and do nothing about it. And the guidance is just to move through that.
Yep, yep, yep.
Oh,
Lovely.
lovely, beautiful. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That's great. It's great to read cards in front of the live audience, because we always set intention for those readings to help those who are watching us, who resonate with the energy we're giving. And to Creative Soul Tarot, Julie from Creative Soul Tarot says, great reading, Jan. Thank you.
Love it.
Beautiful. Thank you for that comment, and thank you for being here with us, my beautiful friends.
And with that, Luna,
Yeah.
we're getting to the end of our show.
Yeah.
And let's just go out with a bell.
Well, what I would suggest is to spend some time today meditating and tapping into our inner self, inner world, and use the advantage of more darkness, even more darkness, to discover our own light. Because in the darkness, you can see the beam of life, hope, love, warmth.
Yeah. And sometimes the darkness brings uncertainty too, but always know that at the end of the darkness, the sun will come up again.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was wonderful to be here with you and spend this wonderful, amazing, and very rare time with you.
Yeah. Thank you. And bye all.